record the session, so if you're watching the replay, um, you'll get this good information in your ears.
All right, so today we are going to talk about motherhood. We're going to talk about the millions of responsibilities and things that come along with being a good mom, what happens when we get curveballs thrown at us, and how at the end of the day, our most important job is to set our children up to have a stable, healthy, successful life. And there's a lot of things that play a part in that. But today we're going to talk about one really crucial thing that we see often gets overlooked or not given enough thought, and that is life insurance. But the good news is that it really is so simple and so cost effective to set yourself up and to put a solution in place. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. Just a little background on our team. We have been recognized by Forbes as a best in state financial planning team. And for the past 2 decades, we've worked with families and couples and individuals on all aspects of their planning and wealth management. And Kristen is really passionate about making financial literacy accessible, especially for women and for single moms. She is a mom of two boys herself, and today she'll be sharing a little bit more about her own personal experience with motherhood and her personal experience with why financial security is so important. So, with that, I introduce my friend, my colleague, the wonderful Kristen Fisher. Take it away.
Thanks, Christine, and thank you again to everybody who is joining live this afternoon or listening on the replay. It's a great mix of women who I've worked with for a long time, some friends of friends, and some totally new people here. So welcome. And I want to acknowledge that for some of you, this webinar might be a complete rudimentary review of what you already know. And for some of you, it might be brand new information. So either way, there's going to be an opportunity to schedule some one-on-one time with me to discuss whatever is on your mind from a financial planning perspective if you'd like. But before I dive in, I wanted to share a little bit about why I decided to host this webinar and why working with women in the financial planning space is something that I am so passionate about. So Christine alluded to the fact that I started my career at Northwestern Mutual. It'll be 20 years ago this November. And at that time, I pretty much was exclusively selling life insurance. This was 2005. This was long before I had a team and credentials and managed assets and had accolades. But in my training class, I met my first husband and we fell in love and we got married. And by 2012, we had bought our dream home. And by 2015, I became pregnant with my first child. But soon after Liam was born, my marriage was in real trouble. And my husband suffered from severe addiction and a whole host of other complex health issues that not only made what should have been the most beautiful time in our lives a living hell, it was frankly just an unhealthy and dangerous home for us to raise our family in. So I made the decision to leave that marriage with my young child, knowing that the two of us would be pretty much on our own in every sense of the term, practically and personally and emotionally and financially. And on my 35th birthday, I became a single mom. Thankfully, I had two really critical things going for me. Most importantly, and number one, I had the unconditional love and support from my family and from my friends. But number two, I had foundational financial security and I had a solid understanding of what I needed to continue to do to live the life that I wanted to live for the both of us. And I did not know how I was going to manage um, raising a child, having a career, going through a divorce with a toddler and no family geographically near me. But I did know that I was financially solid and that my son was protected and that no matter what, we were going to be okay in that regard. And that, plus the love and support of said family and friends, really, really helped me. It helped me believe in myself. It helped me stay strong. It helped me put one foot in front of the other every single day for the months and the year that followed. So that's a lot of sharing. And I normally don't share that personal side of my life in one-on-one client meetings, but I wanted to share it here today to put into context through my own life how having financial planning in place, it didn't solve my problem, but it gave me that much more agency over my future and the future of my son. Now, as moms, and really just as women in general, there is this sort of universal feeling that we are responsible for everything and responsible for everybody. I've heard it analogous to like the CNN ticker that basically is like an endless loop of to-dos. And of course, we've all seen the memes of like strung out moms multitasking to death. I'm sure some of you are multitasking right now. I was gonna say, like, I see you, I hear you, but I actually don't see anybody or hear anybody, so you're good. Just this morning, my friend, who is not on this webinar, didn't even know I was doing this, texted me a whole long thing about how difficult it is for others to appreciate how challenging it can be to be a woman who's taking care of parents, who's taking care of children, and how it might look like we're remembering nothing because we're constantly trying to remember everything. And I was like, you should attend the webinar that I'm hosting about this topic. But in any event, motherhood today, this era of motherhood seems to put monumental importance on every micro decision we could possibly be making, from food to sleep to screen time to saving for college. The list goes on, and it can drive us a little bit nuts. But yes, we need sound information and we want sound information. Our children deserve us to be educated in so many aspects of life, but we can't become PhDs in everything. So we need to be able to lean on experts, make decisions relatively quickly, especially for the things that are clear and sensible. And I am here today to help you make one of those decisions simpler. And as moms, we tend to know, like in our gut, in our core, like when things make sense and are prudent. And I promise you that by the end of today, by the end of our session, you are going to know the next right step. Which brings me to life insurance. So, what is term life insurance? Very simply put, you pay a little bit of money every month, and if God forbid something were to happen and you were to pass away, your family gets a check, period. I'm sure if you have a home or a car, you have homeowners insurance or car insurance. Those are coverages you legally have to have if you have those things. You might even have jewelry insurance or a jewelry rider for your engagement ring. And the reality is that all of those things, a car bumper, a flooded basement, which happened to my husband and I earlier this year, or a lost ring, those things are all replaceable. You, of course, are not replaceable. However, life insurance can and it does ease the financial burden of an unexpected death, allowing families to focus on what truly matters: the healing, the emotional support, each other. And quite candidly, when we're faced with tragedy, the last thing that we want to be worrying about are the bills and going back to work right away or working 2x because we now need to make up lost income. And we have seen this firsthand in our practice. I am going to pass it back to Christine, who's going to share a story from her personal life.
Thanks, Kristen. So about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, something happened that really changed the way I think about what we do here. So a very close friend of mine sadly lost her husband completely out of the blue. And now here's the thing. They had done everything right. They did have life insurance, thank God. And it was a solid policy. However, he had bought it online with no advisor really involved. And so my friend, who was in the middle of this massive grief, was spending hours and hours on the phone trying to navigate like a maze of paperwork and red tape. And, we've all been there, right? You make a phone call about something simple and you're transferred 5 times and put on hold. And so imagine trying to do that while you're grieving and your world has just been turned upside down. And this is something that's really, really important to take care of. Um, Now, I've been doing this with Kristen in this industry for a really long time, but it wasn't, and I mean this so sincerely, it wasn't until I really saw how it plays out and I saw it so close to home that it really hit me and it really gave me so much conviction that what we do and the way we do it really matters so much. Because when you work with our team, when something like this happens, when tragedy happens, you don't spend your time on the phone on hold with strangers. You make one phone call. You make one call to somebody who knows you, who's going to pick up the phone immediately and who's going to say, "Don't worry about it. We've got it. We handle all the details. We make sure that you get what you need in a timely manner. And then we also help you figure out how to make that money work for your family's future." Now, none of us ever think that anything bad is going to happen to us. We all figure that we have plenty of time and that these worst case scenarios happen to other people. But the reality is, it can happen and it does happen. And when it does, having the right policy for the right amount of money with an advisor that you actually know and you trust, that's something that, I mean, God forbid you ever need it. And I hope none of you ever do. But if you do find yourself in that situation, I promise you, you'll be so grateful that you set it up that way. So,
Thanks, Christine. We have totally witnessed that with our clients and our practice. And as horrible as it is to lose someone unexpectedly, being that like first phone call, that lifeline does shift a little bit of their burden in just the most difficult time. And to be clear, the life insurance doesn't solve the problem. No amount of money can ever replace you, your partner, your husband, your loved one, just like money didn't solve my problem either when I left my marriage, but it is a safety net and it gives us flexibility and it provides peace of mind. And in preparation for this talk, that same son who was a little baby way back when I left my marriage, he's now 10 years old. And the other night we were sitting on the couch and I was typing out some notes to share with all of you today. And he's kind of looking over the shoulder at my laptop as they do. And I had written down, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy peace. And he's like, Mommy, what do you mean? What does that mean? So I explained to him that I was going to be speaking to a group of women about the importance of life insurance, especially when you have young children. And I continued to explain to him that if God forbid something happened to me, his little life would stay the same in the day-to-day kind of way. He would stay at the same school. He would still go on vacations. He would still live in the same house. My now husband, Liam's amazing stepdad, he wouldn't have to get a second job or work more hours because I had a life insurance policy and it would really handle all of the expenses. And he kind of like looked at me and his eyes sort of relaxed and he said, "Oh, like you're right. That does sound like peace." And this really happened. He's my son is a bit of an old soul, but in any event, that's what it does. It provides that safety net, it provides that peace of mind. There are different types of life insurance in the marketplace, and that's where I think it can become confusing or overwhelming or kind of create that inertia that makes it go to the bottom of the to-do list. All types of policies I am very, very well versed in and recommend depending on the family and depending on the situation. But the simplest and the most cost-effective policy, if you have children dependent on you, is term life insurance. So Term life is temporary. It provides protection for a specific period of time. It's just like its name. And that term of time, it could be 10 years, it could be 20 years, it could be until you're a certain age, or however long you decide you need the policy for. And if you pass away during the term of time that you're insured, your beneficiaries receive a payout from the policy without any taxes. And once that term ends or you stop making payments, the coverage ends too. It's like renting an apartment. When you rent, you have a home for the length of your lease and as long as you keep paying your rent. But when the lease is up, you either renew the lease or you're done. And because it's designed to be in place for a specific amount of time, most people buy term insurance to cover financial obligations that will disappear over time. So most commonly a mortgage or student loans or business debt or just the cost of raising a young family through college or college and beyond. And in my opinion and in my experience, it is really critical and necessary and the ideal option for families who are just starting out. So this slide shows just a sample, what a simple sample is for obtaining $1 million of life insurance if you are a healthy 35-year-old woman. If you're listening and you're not seeing the visual slides, we are talking about $29 a month. And if you read like my multiple countdown emails and my Instagram posts, I think it was like countdown email number 4 or Instagram post on Tuesday at 12:05, life insurance gets more expensive the older that you get. Life insurance also gets more expensive as your health changes. And it's not always the obvious monumental health changes. It can be seemingly small or insignificant changes that can increase the price if you wait. That is why insurance is often a good idea before you even have the spouse, before you even have the baby or the mortgage, because it can be so affordable and so simple to secure. So by now, you might be thinking that life insurance is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you absolutely have to have it. And since it is Life Insurance Awareness Month, which I would like to point out, the acronym for that is LIAM. So life really does come full circle because that is my son's name, who's at the genesis of this whole story. I would love and welcome follow-up conversations with anyone. Anyone who's thinking that they need to figure out if they need coverage at all. If they do need coverage, how much do they need? What's best for their specific situation? And if you already have life insurance, I'm absolutely happy to take a second opinion to give you just a look under the hood at what you might have put in place a long time ago or what you might have through a job that may or may not be enough. But ultimately, with the goal being to make sure that your family is protected and that you are good. Christine is actually going to drop a link to my calendar in the chat right now. So you can, and we'll also send it to everybody after the call as well. That way you can schedule some one-on-one time during your own convenient calendaring. And while I'm hoping that after today you come away with your mom gut knowing that this is the right step for your family, if it has been not addressed yet. Of course, I absolutely invite partners and spouses to join any follow-up conversations that you guys want to have. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that you secure the right amount of coverage to protect your family, whether it's with me, whether it's with somebody else. No matter who you work with, you want to keep a couple of things in mind. First and foremost, look for quality. Not all insurance companies are created equal, just like not all financial institutions are created equal, just like not all companies are created equally. I strongly recommend that you work with a company that has top financial ratings from the 4 major rating agencies for insurance financial strength and claims paying ability. The second thing I recommend is that you work with a company that will be there when you need them. At Northwestern Mutual, we have been selling life insurance, working with families to protect their futures and plan for almost 2 centuries. We paid out policies through the Civil War, the Great Depression, 2 world wars, 9/11, a number of recessions, COVID most recently. So we're not going anywhere. And I think that just speaks for itself. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we always recommend that you work with someone that you like and that you trust, who has the expertise and I even think like the relatability to guide you towards a financial future and insurance program that works for you and who listens to ultimately what you want out of your financial plan. We work with families across all spectrums of life and life stage planning, from folks that are just on the brink of retirement or intra-retirement already. But we work with a ton of young families, I think, because I am one, a youngish, not so much anymore family, I guess. But there's just a lot of relatability there when we're working with families that are in their 30s and 40s, plus or minus. And it just makes for great synergy. And we really enjoy those clients. So before we transition, we did get a couple of questions through Instagram, and I can't engage on Instagram for compliance reasons. So we wanted to answer those questions here today. We also wanted to make sure that in the chat, you can schedule these one-on-ones and ask your own private questions or ask your own specific family specific questions. If you set up some time based off of our calendar availability. We're opening up that those slots between now and the end of October in appreciation for it being Life Insurance Awareness Month and just really in celebration of being able to kick off an educational webinar like this that kind of hits close to home. So Christine will drop that in the chat. And then I also think Christine has a couple of questions compiled. You guys can also drop questions in the chat if you have any burning ones that you want to make sure get answered live today. But I'll answer a few questions and we can wrap it on up.
All right. Okay, so this question is, my husband is the primary earner in our home. I work a little bit, but mostly take care of the kids. Do I need a policy?
Oh, really good question. Okay, so my answer to that would be every situation is unique. And when I meet with families, I do a deep discovery on what their expenses are, what their liabilities are, what their income is, what their goals are. But generally speaking, I am typically recommending insurance on non-working spouses, especially if you have young kids, um, because there's tremendous economic value that primary caregivers bring to a household. I think we can kind of all agree on that. And there's two things that happen if a primary caregiver passes away. Number one is the surviving spouse who was the earner now has to stop working to take care of the kids, which requires a financial windfall to have the bandwidth to do that. Or number two, that spouse keeps working, but now they have to pay for quality childcare for their children. And I am speaking from experience, that is a lot of money. So there are multiple reasons why it logically and practically often makes sense to have life insurance on a non-working spouse. Very good question. Any other questions, Christine?
All right, so we have, do my husband and I both need a policy or can we get a combined policy?
Oh, well, there are policies out there that insure both husband and wife on one policy, but those policies pay out typically to heirs, children, adult children, or trusts, and are usually most appropriate for tax planning, estate planning. In most cases, for conventional, typical risk management planning. You each get your own policy on your own life for the benefit of the other spouse. A good question.
All right, so the next one is about taxes. Can you explain what you mean by tax-free proceeds?
Sure. So when you die with different assets on your balance sheet, there's different tax treatment depending on the asset. So if you die with stock, if you die with real estate, if you die with retirement accounts, there's different access and there's different tax treatment to how those dollars are received if you are a surviving partner. So I'm not going to get into the nuances of other inherited investments, but all you need to know for today's purposes is that there are no taxes that any heir will pay on life insurance proceeds. There's no income taxes, there's no capital gains taxes, there's no net investment income taxes. It's cash.
Okay. Next question. I have a policy at work. Am I covered already or do I need more?
Oh, okay, that's another good question. These are very good questions. Um, Typically, if you work for a big company, or even if you work for a medium or a small company, you probably have some life insurance policy. Totally different scenario if you're self-employed. But if you work for somebody else, you probably have something. Having a life insurance policy doesn't necessarily mean that you're covered, though. I've seen group policies in force for as little as $10,000 or $25,000. I've also seen, very commonly companies that permit you to buy up more, but sometimes those costs could be the same, if not more expensive than procuring it on your own, going to market and buying it on your own. And then you have it when you own it. So we typically are recommending that anything that we determine is required to get your family set up and protected, you own, and that way it's portable. You have it no matter where you work or don't work. And then anything that you get through your job is like kind of gravy on top of that.
Okay. Couple more. What is the process for applying?
So the process for applying for life insurance is usually very straightforward. You typically complete a medical history questionnaire online, which is kind of like an analogous to like when you go to your primary care physician, you kind of tick off all of the major boxes, yay or nay, from a health Q&A standpoint. And then I complete an application with my families together and submit that for underwriting. When you get submitted for underwriting, it's not like being underwritten for financing or a mortgage or other very invasive underwriting procedures where you're submitting financials or tax returns. There's a lot of medical review, but there's not a lot of financial review. The process in and of itself from start to finish, before we have a physical policy in our hands is usually anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, I would say, especially if you're healthy and don't jump out of airplanes or have dangerous hobbies or do anything that is reckless. Those things are, less common. And in general, it's a pretty seamless, smooth process.
Okay. And the last question I think I have here, unless any others come in, is I already have life insurance, but I like you. Can I still connect with you to discuss my investment portfolio?
Oh, well, thank you. I like you also. Can you still invest? Yes, absolutely. As Christine mentioned in our bio, we have a holistic financial planning practice which combines risk management, like life insurance, with wealth management strategies and investment strategies. We have a very, very robust investment platform. We focus a lot on education planning and retirement planning and asset allocation. So the link that is in the chat to my calendar is open and available, really, regardless of what questions you have when it comes to planning, setting yourself up, doing the infrastructure building to ultimately create a financial bulletproof future. Um, Never going to be bulletproof in other areas, of course, but financially speaking, that's what we're aiming for. I see people are raising hands, and I don't know how to call on someone who's raising their hand. Let's see. if there's any other questions, see if you can drop them into the chat. Otherwise, um, I will be sure to answer any and all questions if you just schedule a quick complimentary one-on-one chat with me when it's convenient for you guys, and then I can make sure that anything else that's lingering on your mind as it relates to planning, as it relates to insurance. I am happy to talk about motherhood, though I am not a motherhood expert by any chance. Christine and I had an offline conversation about 15 minutes before we hopped into the webinar talking about Roblox, which is like the new thing in my son's brain that is sort of like making my head spin. So I'm always happy to talk motherhood and tips and tricks, but I certainly am no guru. But in terms of financial planning, financial security, life insurance, education planning, retirement planning, investment strategy, I'm always happy to have those conversations, regardless of whether you're in a position today um, to work together or not.
Right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. If you have any follow-up questions, I'm going to reply or I'm going to send an email out to everybody with the link to Kristen's calendar again. Again, those one-on-one complimentary meetings will be available for this event through the end of October. I'll also send the replay out if you want to, kind of rewatch it and go back to questions you had. But that's it. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.